Coming at you from the campus of Bethel College in Mishawaka, Indiana, this is Bethel Pilot Radio.
The Ticker with John Hanlon, next on BethelPilotRadio.com. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for listening to The Ticker here on BethelPilotRadio.com. My name is John Hanlon, and on this show, every week we talk about the news from the last week. Politics, world news, local news. We got a couple local news or regional news stories this week to talk about. Packed show as usual, so stick around to the very end. We have the Indianapolis explosion that happened a couple months back. That's first up. We got some new details on that, the guy who committed that. A drunk driver that led police on a rather strange chase that involved two McDonald's drive-thrus. Hear more information about that. Fox News' Ed Henry got in a little bit of a debate with the White House's Jay Carney right there in the White House press room. We'll find out a little bit more about that in the politics section of the show. And which cable news channel is most opinionated? Well, there was a study done on opinion versus just straight news and facts, and it might surprise you. I wanted to get to that show last week, but ended up not having enough time, but we'll make sure to get to it today. Somebody broke into a church from Easter and stole around $40,000. Find out more information about that. Were you fooled by any April Fool's jokes? Well, we will give you a wrap-up of the top ones from Monday, April 1st on April Fool's. And then finally, wrapping up the show, we will have the effect of tablets and our tablets, electronic computer tablets, good for young kids or not. And we will hear a recent study done about that. But let's start off with some new information about that Indianapolis house bomber. Well, he wasn't really he blew up his house. If you're not familiar with the story, back on November 10th, this guy blew up his house in Indianapolis for insurance money, and it ended up being far, far larger of an explosion than he had planned for, and it killed two people in one house and caused 33 homes in the subdivision he lived at to be demolished. So they were so far damaged that they had to be demolished. And he was found just this last week plotting. The guy's in prison right now, and he was found to be plotting to kill a witness that says the witness knows information that this was the guy who was guilty. So here's a report from Fox 59 in Indianapolis about the bombing, the explosion, the Indianapolis house explosion that happened back in November.
Continues here at Richmond Hill, where an intentional explosion destroyed dozens of homes and took 2 lives. And now we're finding out that a man who told police about what Mark Leonard told him about causing this intentional explosion has found himself the target of a murder-for-hire scheme that supposedly Mark Leonard launched from inside the wall.
So Mark Leonard, of course, is the guy who blew up his house. So this report is just from a couple days ago.
Of the Marion County Jail. Investigators say Mark Leonard continues to be his own worst enemy inside the Marion County Jail.
The cooperating witness stated to the investigating officers that Mr. Leonard stated that he wished to arrange for the death of a witness in the explosion case identified as MD.
While locked in a cell like this one on the 4th floor of Marion County's jail, making a call on a phone like this, Leonard was tape recorded, allegedly telling an undercover federal agent that he wanted him to kill a witness in the Richmond Hill case. Leonard drew the map and signed a document confirming the payment of the $15,000, reads the conspiracy to commit murder probable cause. Yeah, I drew it, Leonard is quoted as admitting to the undercover agent. "This is the first time I've been on the telephone in 3 months."
Inmates know that when they make a phone call from inside the Marion County Jail, chances are it's being recorded.
The inmates, for the most part, can read and write, and they know that in their handbook as they come into the jail. So there's several different situations that would let them know that this isn't the smartest thing to do in their case, maybe, but they still do it for whatever reasons.
Leonard, along with his half-brother Bob Leonard and girlfriend Montserrat Shirley, are accused of conspiring to blow up her house in an insurance fraud scam that caused 2 deaths and millions of dollars in damages. Some of the most damning allegations against Leonard come from a man called M.D., who told investigators Leonard told him about how the explosion was planned. That's why Leonard allegedly wanted M.D. dead. "I want to make it look like a suicide," Leonard supposedly told the undercover agent. "It will get me out of jail pretty much instantly." That's where Monty Shirley's house used to stand until the explosion on the night of November 10th, 2012. Now, according to this probable cause, a federal agent says that when Mark Leonard called him from inside the Marion County Jail, he told the federal agent he wanted him to kill M.D., but first convince M.D. to call a 911 dispatcher and say he made up the whole story about what Mark Leonard claimed he did in blowing up Monty Shirley's house here on Field Fairway. Russ McQuaid, Fox 59 News.
This report from Fox 59 in Indianapolis. So you heard it there. There are 3 in custody now. In custody because they blew up their house for insurance money, and it was much larger than they had planned, and it damaged, like I said earlier, 33 homes had to be demolished, and of course it damaged more than that, but those had to be demolished. It was so big, and it caused the death of, it killed 2 people from the explosion. So now the one guy, he's sitting there in jail, and there's this other person named MD, who MD says that the Mark Leonard, the guy in jail, told him how they'd done the explosion and all this information. And so Mark Leonard made a phone call in the prison, which, like they said in the report, that he should have known better than to make a phone call. And supposedly Mark Leonard called somebody and said, basically, take this guy out, take out MD, and our case is going to be clear. They don't have anybody else that can prove he was guilty. So pretty dumb move. Well, but then again, it was a pretty dumb move to even get him in with blowing up his house, and certainly a dangerous thing. But once he was in there, he probably wasn't the best idea to call somebody on the line that was being monitored and say, take this guy out, and once we have him out, we won't have anybody else to worry about. So we will continue to follow that. That was certainly a rather interesting situation. Again, the original explosion was on November 10th of 2012. Well, sticking in Indianapolis, there was a rather strange drunk driving police chase that happened just a few days ago, and it involves the stopping at the McDonald's drive-thru twice. Here's a report from RTV6 in Indianapolis.
Todd, police say it started here at the McDonald's near the Edinburgh Outlet Mall about 3:15 yesterday morning.
That's when this guy, 26-year-old James Thornburg, decided to take police on a high-speed chase.
I mean, I was intoxicated.
So when he saw the flashing lights behind him in the drive-thru, he took off.
I was going to get in trouble anyways, you know, so I decided to run.
Police say Thornburg headed north on US 31 into Johnson County, driving his Honda Civic at better than 110 miles an hour.
I think I was going a little bit faster than that, though.
Even though he admits to driving drunk, Thornburg downplayed the serious nature of this event.
Every time I saw a car coming towards me, like I literally would go off into the grass.
He says he didn't have any inspiration for the stunt. However,
you see it in movies and video games and stuff, and, you know, I actually did it.
Like something you chalk up on your bucket list.
At least I could say I've been in a high pursuit chase in my life, and it was fun.
This inmate's fun evening started at the drive-thru and ended there.
Thornburg's high-speed chase came full circle when it ended here at this McDonald's in Seymour. No, this was not a Big Mac attack. He said he was after one thing when he went through this drive-thru: chicken nuggets. He ordered, but he never got them. What he did get? A pair of handcuffs. Drew Smith, RTV6.
So it was a little bit hard to hear. James Thornburg of Columbus, Indiana, was the one in the car, and they originally, he had been speeding down the road, swerving all over, drunk driving. Somebody called police, said, here's this guy. They found James Thornburg. He was in the drive-thru at McDonald's, so he had gotten off the road. When he saw the police were trying to get him to pull over, get him to stop, he sped out of the drive-thru at McDonald's and then led police on a chase that reached over 110 miles per hour. And it finally ended again at another McDonald's with him trying to order in the drive-thru. And he said at that one point, it was a little bit hard to hear. He said, I had a blast. It was just like a video game. At least I can say I've been in a high pursuit chase in my life, and it was fun. So he didn't seem to regret it very much. You heard him say that, or you might have heard him say that basically he was going to get pulled over anyway. Why not just have this fun and run from one McDonald's to the other? Like he mentioned, just like in a movie or a video game. So he started at one McDonald's, ended up at another, and I don't think he got the food from either of them, but I guess it was a fun night for him. Let's move back to South Bend and another rather strange crime case. Two women, apparently in desperate need for hair extensions, walked into the Save More Beauty Shop at the corner of Olive Street and Lincoln Way West right here in South Bend. They grabbed 2 boxes of hair extensions off the wall and then ran out the door. The clerk in the store followed them, and he approached them and said, hey, you just stole 2 boxes of hair extensions, and they denied stealing the boxes. They said, no, we didn't do that. So apparently the clerk grabbed one of the women's purses to start looking for the item. I don't know if he could see it in it. He must have been able to see that the box was sitting there. And so he grabbed the purse and started trying to pull it out. And that's when one of the women kind of took it a step up and pulled a gun on him, a semi-automatic pistol, and said, I'm going to shoot you if you don't give me my purse back. And the clerk was able to grab one hair extension box out of the lady's purse and then handed it back, and the women sped off. Luckily, police were able to, through surveillance video, were able to identify their faces and license plate, and last I checked, they had not caught them, but they were pretty sure that they were going to catch them from the car license plate, and they had pictures of their faces. Once you have those two, it's not that hard to find them. So this took place at the Save More Beauty on Olive Street and Lincoln Way West in South Bend. And again, not the smartest thing to do. And it was simply over 2 boxes of hair extensions. Now, I'm not familiar with exactly how much those would cost, but they can't be that much. And if you're going to steal something, make it something a little bit better than hair extensions. But I guess they came prepared. The one lady had her gun ready, and she pulled it out, and they were getting away with those hair extensions no matter what. Let's get into some political news here. And Jay Carney got into a little bit of an argument with Ed Henry, who is the White House correspondent for Fox News. He had previously been at CNN, and he is actually the head of the White House Correspondents Association, which is kind of the group of journalists that cover the White House. And Ed Henry with Fox News is the, I forget his title, but he's the head of that group. And he got in a little bit of a debate with Jay Carney, who is the White House press secretary. And they have might know this. In the White House press briefing room, they have a daily briefing to brief the press on whatever's going on in the White House, and the press secretary will answer questions. Occasionally, even the president will come out and give some words. Not very often, very very rarely, but they will have secretaries of the different branches and different things like that come out and give briefings related to whatever is happening in the White House. So this was on Monday, I believe, and Ed Henry was asking about the White House had said sequestration. With sequestration, basically just budget cuts and cuts that the government was forced to make because they couldn't. Republicans and Democrats couldn't come to any other agreement, so they were forced to make these what's called sequestration budget cuts. And Ed Henry was asking Jay Carney about, hey, you guys in the White House said these cuts were going to be much more severe than what we originally saw, or no, what we're seeing now. Once the cuts went through, you guys were saying they would be more severe than what we're seeing. What's going on with that? Did you exaggerate the sequestration cuts just to try to get Republicans to make a deal? Did you embellish it? What was going on with the effects of sequestration? So I've got a clip from the little back and forth, and just so it's clear, there's the two guys, Ed Henry and Jay Carney, who are going back and forth, and then also Ed Henry mentions, hey, the Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano had this to say back whenever it was, a month ago or so, a couple months back, when sequestration is being debated, and she said one thing, and now one thing different is happening. So you'll hear in this clip, the lady is Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano speaking a couple months ago, and the two guys are speaking Monday, and just to clear it up. So here's them. They're going back and forth on whether the White House embellished the effects of sequestration cuts, basically to try to get Republicans to come around to the Democrats' viewpoint, the White House's viewpoint. So here's Ed Henry talking to Jay Carney with bits of Janet Napolitano clips put in there where they make sense to go.
Can you give us an update on the sequester? Because yesterday the Customs and Border Protection Agency said that they're actually postponing furloughs and overtime cuts for Border Patrol agents. I thought in February when Secretary Napolitano came out here with you, she told us it was dire, these Border Patrol agents were going to be furloughed, and that we were going to be less safe because of that.
Look, I don't think we can maintain the same level of security at all places around the country with sequester as without sequester.
So right there, this is a little Fox News video. So they put this together with, so the first two guys you heard there, and they go on, but I just wanted to explain to make sure everybody was up to date. The first two guys you heard there are Jay Carney and Ed Henry. Ed Henry asked what's going on with what she said earlier, and then Fox News spliced in her bit from a couple months back.
Well, I think both are true. What is a fact is that when you're dealing with...
And this is Jay Carney's response to Ed Henry on the question that he asked in response to Janet Napolitano speaking a couple months ago. I hope this isn't too confusing, but I just wanted to make sure it was clear.
Around the country with sequester as without sequester.
Well, I think both are true. What is a fact is that when you're dealing with these kinds of across the board forced budget cuts in the middle of a fiscal year, and you're having to make all sorts of adjustments to account for them and to reduce your expenditures accordingly. It's a moving picture, and that can be on the plus side where furloughs may take place a little later, or on the minus side where things may be more immediate.
Yeah, it'll be like a rolling ball. It'll keep growing.
Feel free to convey to your readers and viewers that the sequester doesn't matter, and then explain and explain. No, you said it wasn't dire.
The secretary came in here and said that we were going to be less safe.
Put simply, the automatic budget reduction mandated by sequestration would be disruptive and destructive to our nation's security and economy.
People were going to be crossing the border because there were less Border Patrol agents, and then they announced yesterday, actually, we're not doing that. So I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying
I'm
she
saying,
mislead the public?
Absolutely not. And I'm saying that this is, I mean, you're editorializing enormously in that, but the...
How so?
But,
February, I'll give you February 25th. She said...
If you have 5,000 fewer Border Patrol hours, or agents, you have 5,000 fewer Border Patrol agents. That has a real impact.
Those are her words. It's not
right.
Politicizing.
And how is that not the case?
They announced yesterday they're not doing that.
Well, but there are reductions, and whether it's those Border Patrol... Go ahead and report that, Ed. We've made clear... Look,
you said 5,000.
If you have 5,000 fewer Border Patrol hours, or agents, you have 5,000 fewer Border Patrol agents. That has a real impact.
We're not doing that.
Talk to those who have been laid off at defense industries. Talk to those who have been furloughed in the... Look, you can obviously go to DHS and...
She said we're going to be less safe.
Right.
So I hope that wasn't too hard to catch there. But basically he was saying Janet Napolitano came out a month ago, or whenever it was, a couple months ago, I don't know the exact date, and said 5,000 Border Patrol agents. She said several. She was basically giving what the effects of the sequestration cuts would do. And one of the things was 5,000 Border Patrol agents would have to be fired. And Ed Henry is saying now they announced that, oh, that's not the case. You know, we were trying, after the White House tried to scare people and scare... Ed Henry saying, after the White House tried to scare people by saying all these people are going to be fired, now they come out and say, oh, I guess that's not the case after all, and we aren't really going to have 5,000 Border Patrol agents that are fired. They just announced that it was still some, but not nearly that many. So that's a pretty rare event for the White House press secretary and a reporter to go back and forth to that extent, kind of a little cable news argument you'd expect to see on O'Reilly or something. But it was a pretty interesting topic, I thought. And so I hope that was somewhat clear there, that the clips that the lady speaking was Janet Napolitano, and those clips were not in direct answer to Ed Henry. They were clips put in over top, spliced in from what she had said previously. And again, the sequestration certainly is cuts, and I don't think anybody is... it's cuts to some places. I don't think anybody is denying that. It's just not to the extent, at least with the Border Patrol agents. The point there was that it's not to the extent that they had said it would be. Speaking of cable news, you've probably heard that MSNBC is on the left and Fox News is on the right. You might have an opinion on one is more fair, the other is more fair, the one does more news, the other does more news, whatever. Depending on whether you're on the left, you probably have an opinion, or left or right, you probably have an opinion on which is better, which is your favorite. A new Pew Research poll shows it judged the content of what was just news giving. So this happened today, this whatever happened today, there's a shooting, whatever, that's news. And then opinion, which is debate, the hosts giving opinions, the anchors giving opinions. And they monitored CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News and split their content for a certain period of time into opinion and into news gathering, news giving, those two categories. And here is the result of their study from CNN's Reliable Sources show.
Everyone knows cable news has been getting more opinionated, but a new report by the Project for Excellence in Journalism finds substantial differences between the news channels. The study finds that MSNBC is 85% opinion, an approach that is obvious to anyone who watches.
Just 3 months after Newtown and 8 months after the Aurora, Colorado shootings in that movie theater, it's time to do something, I think. And tonight I'm urging you all to call your senators and members of Congress.
Call your members of Congress. Fox News, by contrast, is 55% opinion, and CNN is the only one of the three, according to this study, to air more reporting, 54%, than opinion at 46%. So, Gail Schister, MSNBC, almost all opinion all the time. Is that in part because it's the cheapest form of programming?
Absolutely. There's no question. It's a lot cheaper to just spout off and be a gas bag about anything than it is to actually report it. The thing that gave me pause about the study, and I have great respect for Pew, is how they differentiated between opinion versus reporting, because you could argue that reporting informs opinion, and where do you draw the line? So I wasn't sure within the content analysis that they did for the study. I was dubious about what was opinion, what was news. But there's no question about it. It's very cheap to have an opinion. Everybody's got one.
So, Joe Concha, you've written that MSNBC, 85% opinion, maybe 90% liberal opinion. You say the network won't own up to what it is. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, when you have their highest-rated anchor, who's Rachel Maddow, go on Bill Maher's show on Real Time and say the following: my job is to cover things, not tell you how I like them or not. Or says that we have a lot of liberals on MSNBC, but none of them have a political objective. You know, she's a very intelligent woman. That is a profoundly stupid thing to say to anybody who's paying attention. If you watch Rachel Maddow's show, that is clearly an opinion-based show. However, I will make this point.
But that's not the same thing as saying that she's pushing some kind of Democratic Party agenda.
No. I'm saying it's dangerous, all right, to be saying that I am an objective reporter. I am here to just present the news to you. I'm not here to make an opinion. That is dishonest, and that needs to stop right away, because that's something that her viewers should know. That, and I would think they could tell the difference. But it's not an opinion show. That's an opinion show, not a straight news show.
I certainly don't think Rachel Maddow is saying that her job is to be an objective reporter. Marisa Guthrie, CNN.
I just said the quote, though, Howie.
CNN has the reputation as the reporting network, and I think that was borne out by this Project for Excellence in Journalism report. Some people might be surprised to see that Fox News was almost 50-50 in terms of the balance between reporting and opinion.
Well, yeah, I think that I was surprised by the vast difference in percentages between Fox News and MSNBC, and I'm with Gail. I'd kind of like to know what is reporting, what Pew considers reporting, and what Pew considers opinion. I mean, sometimes it's clearly obvious. I think that, you know, MSNBC has taken this sort of, you know, preaching to the choir news and made and formed a whole business model around it, and that's partly in their effort to be sort of the counterpoint to Fox News. And you know, the Fox News opinions are so loud in prime time that I think they do overshadow a lot of what goes on the network during the afternoon. I mean, Chris Wallace, still, I think, really one of the, you know, a very independent voice on Fox News.
Right. Yeah, Shepard Smith as well does 2 hours as well, guys. Hey, Howie, one point as
opposed to Chris Matthews, who's very quiet. His opinions are very quiet.
He's a soft-spoken fellow. Yes, Joe, quickly.
Opinions are good for business, though, Howie. I mean, let me compare two things here real quick. In 2007, MSNBC had 2 liberal hosts and 2 conservative hosts in its prime time, and otherwise I did straight news throughout the day outside of Imus. In 2013, it's all liberal and mostly opinion on the day side. They've doubled their ratings, in essence, from 2007 to 2013 in the key demo that you mentioned before. So to do opinion, it's cheaper, as we pointed out before. Also, invariably, it gives you better ratings.
Though, in fairness to MSNBC, the morning show anchored by Joe Scarborough, former Republican congressman, he does not fall in the liberal category.
So that was from CNN's Reliable Sources show, which on that show they talk about media and how it responds to events and polls just like that one. And they were discussing the Pew Research poll that found MSNBC was by far the most opinionated of CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC. And a lot of people have a little bit of a misconception about opinion versus news. People like to say that neither one of them, none of them, as we just heard, are all opinion, and that that they have news. Each one of them has news that they report, and it's not like you can't believe anything that comes out of one versus the other. And Fox News is usually seen, or at least it has in the past. The one guy mentioned there at the end the statistic about how many shows are opinionated on MSNBC today versus a few years ago, whenever it was that the date he mentioned. And Fox News, I think, has for the longest been longer than anybody else has been the kind of the voice of the right. Not that they are all right slanted. You can never, you should never listen to them because it's all coming from the same direction. No, but their opinion shows have been conservative based longer than MSNBC's shows have been liberal based. It's probably the best way to put it. So you've got daytime shows, though, on Fox News that are certainly not opinion-based, such as Fox Reports, America Live, America's Newsroom, America's News Headquarters, and Fox Reports. All of those shows are, hey, here's the news. They might have a roundtable discussion, but it's not an opinion show like Bill O'Reilly sitting there telling you, okay, here's what, the grand conspiracy of how Obama's trying to ruin America. They might have opinion shows where roundtable discussions where people give their opinions, but it is not an opinion show. All of those shows that I just named are clearly news gathering, news reporting shows. And so I was kind of surprised that only 55% of Fox News was opinion, but MSNBC, like the guy mentioned there at the end, as they've gotten more liberal, as they've got more opinion-based shows, their ratings have gone up, their viewers have gone up, and they're now more popular than ever, which, by the way, if you're wondering, as far as the ranking of most watched, Fox News is by far the most watched cable news network, followed by MSNBC, and then CNN usually comes in third. But I thought that was also interesting that CNN is the only cable network cable news network that has more reporting than opinion. And I think if I was CNN, I would capitalize on that, and I would make that known that, hey, you can go to MSNBC for the left, go to Fox News for the right, but if you want down the middle, if you just want reporting, come to CNN, which, according to this report, has the least opinion and more just straight reporting than any of the other two. Basically, it's just those three: Fox News, MSNBC, CNN. As far as cable news, there really isn't anybody else. So CNN is the most, I guess you could say, unbiased, if you want to put it that way, as far as just news reporting and not opinion. And again, I think there is this misconception that when you turn it on and you see Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, or you turn it on and you see Sean Hannity or Bill O'Reilly on Fox News, and you say, oh, well, that's not news reporting. They're clearly conservative or liberal. They're pushing their agenda. Well, again, those shows are not made to be. They don't claim they are fair and balanced. To borrow the term from Fox News, they don't claim they are. They're opinion shows. So you can't judge the whole network by turning on an opinion show and expecting it to be something it's not, expecting it to be news reporting. So that study was fascinating to me, and just which ones, because you hear all the time that Fox News is on the right, MSNBC is on the left, and CNN is somewhere in the middle, and I guess that's exactly true. Fox News is on the right, CNN is somewhere in the middle, MSNBC is on the left, but MSNBC far out is the most opinionated of the three, and 95% of the time on the liberal side of politics. Well, you're listening to The Ticker here on BethelPilotRadio.com. My name is John Hanlon. We're talking about all the news of the week. Well, you've probably heard of the various measures being taken to protect kids in schools from shooters after several school shootings. Of course, the big one, Newtown, Connecticut. Well, there are some people who are now buying bulletproof backpacks for their kids to make sure that they are protected. An ABC News Nightline show found one of these parents and talked to them about exactly why they think their kids need to have bulletproof backpacks to protect themselves in school.
For most parents, school shopping is all about sales on Trapper Keepers and the jumbo pack of Crayolas. But in the wake of Sandy Hook and Aurora, some parents are now adding bulletproof coats and backpacks to the shopping list. As for the company offering such pint-sized armor, is it a cynical play on parental fear or a legitimate form of protection? ABC's John Schriffen goes inside the business of bulletproofing America's kids.
It's 6 a.m., an ordinary school day for Dmitrik Boykin and his 4-year-old daughter, Jalea.
So this is Superwoman's cape.
Ordinary, except for this brand new backpack.
What does it do?
Because it's bulletproof. That's right. Despite the girly pink fabric and pretty patterns adorning it, this backpack offers military-grade protection.
It's kind of heavy.
If you think Dimitrik might be a little paranoid, just consider where he lives, Aurora, Colorado, site of the horrific movie theater shooting last July.
So you think about the fact that your wife and your daughter could have been in there when the shooting happened?
I absolutely do.
Dimitrik is among a wave of parents willing to try this extreme and controversial measure to protect their children at school.
So if they were to come in your classroom with any guns, you put this on, and this would stop the bullets.
Bulletproof clothing, is that really necessary?
It felt like this was the easiest thing that I could do to keep my arm around her when I couldn't keep my arm around her.
That anxiety has led to an emerging market for something most Americans would have never thought necessary: bulletproof clothing for children, from jackets to shirts to backpacks like Jalea's.
It's flexible, lightweight.
Tim Hogan is the COO of Elite Sterling Security, or ESS, which distributes the 3-pound backpack little Jalea will now carry to school.
Is this really necessary?
Well, if you get on a plane, they make you put on a vest. If you're taking a cruise, they make you put on a life vest in order to make sure that you're taken care of. We think this is just one more safety step.
This is insane. I'm not going to treat it like a reasonable or realistic idea.
But Lad Everett, a gun control advocate and parent himself, sees this as a disturbing sign of how the acceptance of gun violence is becoming the norm.
We can accept that when our children go to school, they should be under the same type of threat of active combat as law enforcement and soldiers, or we can take basic steps to make sure that the shooting never starts in the first place.
The company gets its backpacks from this man, Miguel Caballero, a master in the science of stopping bullets. We are at his factory in Bogota, Colombia. He is so confident in his products, he has a long-standing, if bizarre, tradition at the factory
Juan Carlos.
For new employees.
So you are going to shoot him?
Yeah, in a few minutes.
And you're okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Today, his 260 employees are hard at work making bulletproof gear for the Red Cross, the Paraguayan police, and now, the company's newest clients, American children. He says the idea came on a fateful day just 3 months ago, the day of the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary in Newtown, Connecticut. Caballero says he started receiving requests from anxious American parents within days of the shooting.
The mails that are received from the parents, they say, I am afraid to send my child to the school.
But what do you say to those people who think that children just should not be wearing bulletproof clothing and being exposed to this so early?
If you need, you will use. If you don't need, you don't have to use. But it's the best way to prevent any accident with your child.
They have a profit motive. I understand that. They're businessmen.
Everett says parents should be skeptical of these products and how effective they really are.
If a guy walks in there with an AR-15 and multiple 30-round magazines and unloads more than 150 rounds in less than 5 minutes, how many kids are going to be saved by bulletproof clothing in that instance?
Caballero says the quality of his products speak for themselves. He's putting 4 shots from this 9mm Glock straight into the backpack.
We don't have any penetration.
Can you put this back into the backpack and the child reuse this?
Yeah.
With that, 4 more shots.
We now have 8 total shots into this backpack.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8 shots. Now we turn it around.
0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
There is nothing on this side of the plate, which is actually against the child's body.
Yeah.
If the child is actually wearing this backpack on their back, what would they feel?
They will feel like they punch.
Caballero's very first shipment of 150 units is on its way to the United States, and the line officially launched here last week. But Everett says the fact that these products even exist demonstrates that we have lost sight of the real issue.
Do you want to live in a country where your child has to go to school on a daily basis wearing bulletproof clothing because at any given moment they could be attacked and killed by someone who is homicidal and who has gained easy access to military-style firepower. I would ask them, is that your vision of America, or does that to you sound like a third world country?
That piece is what's important, though, okay? This is the important piece.
But for Dimitrik, that threat exists, and he wants to take action against it. The early reviews from Jalea are mixed. Is it comfortable?
No, because it's tight and heavy and slow.
What do you like about this?
That it has parts.
We went with Dimitrik as he dropped off Jalea inside her elementary school. Do you think everything went according to plan?
She has seemed to embrace it and understands that her safety is important.
Later that day, he took us to the Aurora movie theater. He hasn't been there since the shooting. But now that Jalea can potentially protect herself with the backpack, he says they might start going to the movies again.
Is it crazy to be thinking about your little daughter having to maneuver in a situation where bullets are flying around? I mean, we're talking about this.
It's horrifying. Crazy doesn't even describe it. It's something that I hate that I even have to imagine. But it's something that I realize is reality with today.
I'm John Schriffen for Nightline in Aurora, Colorado.
So Nightline report on the, I guess, growing trend of parents who are purchasing bulletproof backpacks and coats and clothing items for their kids simply for protection at school. And you heard the one gentleman in there, I forget his name, but they said he was the gun control advocate. And I agree and disagree with some of the stuff he said. I think that parents are doing this not because they want this type of society or because they want to, but they're doing it because that's the reality of, well, what they think the reality of what could happen in a school today. Now, I do kind of agree with one thing that he was hinting at, and that is that I'm not sure kids are going to have the state of mind to grab their backpack and hold it over themselves when somebody with a gun walks in the room. I'm not even sure adults would, be able to think that quickly, and the backpack has to be near them. They don't have their backpack on all day at school. If it's across the room, well, there you go. That's now does no good. So, in the practical sense of it, I'm not sure. I mean, it's protection, and that's what the parents are looking for. It's certainly better than nothing. But I don't know if it would really do any good if somebody with a gun walked into a classroom, even if a kid had one of these and started shooting, that they would be able to keep it on them, that they would be able to, not have it and use it for actual protection. They also didn't mention any kind of a price. I can only assume that these things are ridiculously expensive, as you might expect with bulletproof material. So that's just something to take into account. Not that everybody's going out and doing this, but now I will say the design they showed the design there, and it looks exactly like a normal kid's backpack. You would never know the difference. It's just this the bulletproof part is just a thin. It's kind of like if you've ever seen a backpack that can carry a laptop. Well, it's kind of like instead of a laptop in the backpack, it's this thin little piece of bulletproof material that stops the bullet in the backpack. So it's I guess if that's what parents feel they need to do to protect their kids. Again, I wouldn't say I completely agree with that, the one guy in there, but some of the things he said I agree with, like the practical aspect of it. I can't see. Now, if they're walking down the hallway or something and they got the backpack on and somebody starts shooting, it might stop the bullet. Again, this is only, at least in the case of the backpack, it's only on your back. It's not on the front. So if the kid turns around, well, it does no good. So I don't know about the practical aspect of it, but it's a something to think about, and that we've certainly nobody would have liked to come to this point, and it'd be great to cut back on those shootings. But parents are looking at hey, how can I protect my kid regardless of where I don't want this to happen, but if it did, what would the situation be? What would be the safest for my child? Well, hey, are you feeling a little chilly with this cold weather we've been having? Head over to the bookstore right here on campus and pick up a Bethel hoodie. Despite its name, you can do a lot more at the Bethel bookstore than just buy books. Students can purchase Bethel merchandise like clothing and gifts, trade in your old textbooks, order specialty books, and of course, order next semester's books. Stop by the Bethel bookstore right here on campus or online at bethelbookstore.com. You're listening to The Ticker here on BethelPilotRadio.com. My name is John Hanlon, and we're talking about all the news happening from the week. Well, Easter was, of course, this last Sunday, and one church unfortunately lost all of the money that they had collected. $40,000 were stolen from a church in Michigan. Here is WDVI reporter about this church in Michigan.
During 6 Easter Masses at St. Teresa of Lisieux, the church was overflowing. Thieves apparently figured the collection plate was too.
People just don't expect this to happen in a church.
They entered overnight through a glass door, then pried open 3 more doors.
They came in through here.
Administrative manager Linda Macarone says they disturbed only one room in the office area. It contained a vault which held all the Easter collections.
The police think they used some type of grinding, drilling type tool to get into it. We had 6 collections in there from our 6 masses. There were 6 plastic bags of our Sunday collections, checks and cash. We believe it to be probably around $40,000.
The cash portion was roughly $6,500. They also took at least one chalice similar to this one.
It's sad. We got to pray for them.
The thieves also took rice bowls. Children of the parish had been filling them with their coins during Lent to help poor children in other countries. The break-in is believed to be connected to an overnight burglary at St. Luke Church in Clinton Township. They disabled the security system and cut into the vault. Why can't the money be deposited right after the Mass?
Well, it has to be counted, and some are in checks, some are they're in envelopes. So it's a process that takes some time. It takes several hours.
The money is insured, but some parishioners came by today to make another Easter donation.
It saddened me just because of our parish being such a giving parish, and we support local organizations and families in need.
So one church on Easter losing $40,000. They had it inside this giant safe looking thing, and they showed a picture of the doorknob area, and somehow the thieves it looked like it was out of a movie. They'd blown off, or I guess they said they somehow sawed off this big chunk of the safe door to get to this money. I guess you wouldn't expect a church offering money to be the place that would be robbed, but I guess thieves find it a pretty easy target for that very reason. Not many people would think to rob a church, but I guess they figured during Easter is when they would have the most money available. And this sounds like it's a bit of an inside job to me, or at least somebody who had some connection to the church to know, hey, they don't. You heard the lady there at the end. They asked her, why can't you just cash the money and checks to the bank? And she said, well, there's a process. Well, who all knew about this process and would have known to break in at just the couple of days when that money is inside the church in the vault there at the church? I think you would expect that the church wouldn't have $40,000 on hand, and normally they don't, but it's just that short period of time. And I would start looking at who it is that knew that information, and that or told somebody, and look in that direction for who might have done it. Well, on a lighter note, a staple of Easter candy and food, Peeps, celebrated their 60th anniversary this year. Here's NBC News.
Tomorrow is Easter Sunday, and for many, it's hard to imagine spending that holiday without a certain small, colorful marshmallow snack. Peeps turned 60 years old this year, and the story of the sugary treat has been one of sweet success. NBC's Katie Tur has our report.
Every winter, spring starts to line the shelves. Hot pink, neon yellow, and electric blue faces that can trigger 1,000 memories of Easter's past.
I just love how they're yummy and sweet and gooey. They're just delicious.
60 years since the first Peep was hatched, the sugar-coated marshmallow has become a lot more than just a treat. They can be a test of fortitude, a test of true love.
Romeo, Romeo, where are you, Romeo?
Or for the kids at Friendship Valley Elementary in Maryland, a test of the mind.
We had to work on how we were going to engineer and design the weird Rube Peep Berg contraption.
In the world of Peeps, there are no rules, especially when it comes to eating them. Bite the head off first. After all, some say that is the most humane way to do it. Nibble all around the sides, but that's just cruel to those waiting in the wings. Or stick the whole thing in your mouth at once and let it dissolve so the others don't know what happened. Although, if you ask anyone who works at the Peep factory, the best way is any way, so long as it's right off the conveyor belt. How many do you eat in a day?
I have to be honest with you, no more than a dozen.
Aptly situated in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, the Peeps factory churns out 4 million chicks and bunnies a day, 1 billion for Easter alone. 3,810 of those went into Big Bird at this year's Peep Art Show in Carroll County, Maryland, where their Peep art can even be a Peep Bart, and where the Friendship Valley kids hope their masterpiece will take home the gold.
Oh, actually, ours is winning.
It's a place and a treat that can even make a grown-up feel like a kid again. I went to the Peeps factory. Katie Tur, NBC News, Westminster, Maryland.
So Peeps' 60th anniversary this year. And I've got to say, I'm not a big Peeps fan. I might be the only person in the world who's not a fan of Peeps. I am not a big marshmallow fan, and just eating a pile of sugar is not that attractive. At least not when it's a Peep. It might be attractive if it's something else, maybe chocolate related. But Peeps' 60th anniversary this year, and they say that 1 billion are sold every Easter. 1 billion Peeps are sold. Well, April Fool's Day was, of course, April 1st, this last Monday, the day after Easter, and you might have seen some very pretty cool April Fool's jokes, and NBC News wrapped up the top ones, including a joke right from the White House, April Fool's Day prank right from in a video released from the White House, and several other of the top pranks from the day.
Finally tonight, a lot of people woke up today to that news story out of France, a sure sign of our times. It was announcing the residents of one French town would soon be receiving their morning newspaper by drone. And the day went on from there. On the 1st of April, even though so many of us try to be on guard, people are still going to try. They're going to see the shot and take it, and a few of them are going to get through, as NBC's Kevin Tibbles reports for us tonight.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
It looks like you're inspecting somebody else.
Yes, even the highest office in the land got into the act on a day when the pranksters come out to play. When everyone from corporations to the kid down the block tries their hand at tomfoolery.
Companies know that if they do something outlandish, it will get talked about.
But April Fool's on all y'all.
The makers of Scope pulled a porker with bacon-flavored mouthwash.
Scope bacon for breath that sizzles.
And Honda?
Coming soon.
A car that can also quaff. The Honda Hair.
No hair is too tough for Honda Hair.
Now, isn't that nice?
It sure is.
Want to tweet on April Fools? Twitter says you're going to have to buy a vowel. $5 a month for AEIOU. But Joan Rivers tweets back, Twitter, why buy vowels when you get Y for free, suckers? Beautiful Ely, Minnesota banned tweeting altogether today, urging folks to get outdoors where only the birds tweet. Mother Nature's April Fool's joke this opening day at the ballpark. Last year, this time in Chicago, 21 days over 60 degrees. This year, 0. How about Smello searching from Google Knows, where you can search by scent because smelling is believing.
What does a ghost smell like? Google knows.
Gmail today unveiled Gmail Blue, where everything is, well,
the little lines, they're in blue. When you go into help, it's blue.
It's Gmail, only bluer.
And British clothing store Bowden rolled out the Marylebone man skirt. Although, when you click to pick your size, this pops up. Meanwhile, back at the White House,
I think I'm stuck.
Kevin Tibbles, NBC News, Chicago.
Now, if you haven't seen the White House video, you can check it out. I believe it's youtube.com/the White House. And they teamed up with Kid President, who is kind of an internet celebrity. He does these, I think he's 7 or 8 years old, and he does these videos on YouTube like he's the president, and they're really, really funny, and they have teamed up a couple times now with the real White House, with President Obama's White House, and so the real White House released this video saying a special message from the president, and you push play, and there it is, Kid President in the White House press briefing room, and it was really funny. So definitely check that out. I think it's youtube.com/the White House, and scroll down a little bit so you see the April 1st video, a special message from the president, I believe was the title of it. So pretty cool stuff on April Fool's Day, and I think it comes down to, like the one guy mentioned there, when companies do outlandish things or funny stuff or whatever, it's just another marketing technique like everything else. When they release something for April Fool's Day, like Honda did with the Honda Hair, and basically it allowed you to shape your hair with this vacuum-looking thing in the car, it just got people once again talking about Honda, how cool Honda is, that they would do an April Fool's Day joke, and there you go. It's another form of marketing. One last story here on the ticker. My name is John Hanlon. We're talking about all the news from the week. And, of course, March Madness, the basketball games, they're almost over, down to the Final Four, but there are 3 games left, and there have been a lot of games happening. And at one of the, I don't know if this was before a game, at one of the pregame shows, one of the CBS announcers, there's usually 4 or 5 guys sitting there at the desk, and they talk about what's coming up on the game or whatever. One of them made a kind of controversial comment that got a lot of people up in arms. So here it is from March 29th. CBS sports analyst Doug Gottlieb. And here's what he said.
Doug Gottlieb, Kenny the Jet Smith, Sir Charles Barkley. Welcome back to New York, guys, and it's going to be a good night.
I think we're going to have 4 terrific games tonight. I really do think that they're going to be pretty evenly matched, as it should be for Sweet 16.
Cream rising to the crop. I don't know why you guys asked me. I'm just here to bring diversity to this set here. Give the kind of white man's perspective on things from the point guard position. No.
Okay, just checking. Marquette, Miami.
How with you guys?
No, I'm just checking, man. I'm just checking. You jumped right into it. You swimming hard.
Okay.
Upstream, I might add. Trust me, we'll get you back before the end of the night. Question. So, for me, it could be a lot of firsts for Miami. Here's a team that hasn't been to the Final Four, hasn't been to even Elite 8. But
so you heard it there. It was kind of a little strange. I don't know if you caught on there. The one guy who is the only white guy at the table, and basically they were just giving their initial thoughts on the games, and the guy comes out and says, "I don't know why you guys ask me. I'm just here to bring diversity to this set, give kind of the white man's perspective." I guess some people were offended by this. I'm not sure. I don't know why you'd be offended by that necessarily. I wasn't offended by that. I thought it was pretty dumb thing to say, and it didn't even make any sense. I guess he was trying to make a joke about that he's the only white guy at the table, which is true. There were four other guys, and he was the only white one. But it was a pretty dumb thing to say, and that guy's name was, the person who said it was Doug Gottlieb, a CBS Sports analyst, and some people were so offended that ESPN football analyst Mark May says that he should be fired. Charles Barkley, who was one of the other panelists there on the set, said, I want to say something. He said this later in the show. I want to say something about Doug Gottlieb. He made a joke earlier tonight. All of those people on Twitter who are going crazy, which I would never, ever do. Listen to me, Kenny, Greg, Anthony, and Greg Gumbel didn't take that personally. So all you people at home who've got no life and who are talking bad about Doug Gottlieb, get a life. It's no big deal. So he's basically pushing it off and saying, you know, it was certainly a dumb statement, but it's not that big of a deal. But again, he said, Doug Gottlieb, he said, I don't know why you guys ask me. I'm just here to bring diversity to this set, kind of give a white man's perspective. So not the smartest thing to say, for sure. But that's going to do it here on The Ticker on BethelPilotRadio.com. My name's John Hanlon, and you can catch this show right here on BethelPilotRadio.com each and every Wednesday starting at noon on BethelPilotRadio.com. Again, my name's John Hanlon. I appreciate everybody listening.